In case you're living under a rock, Trump has been rushed to the hospital. They believe that he is having trouble breathing, and they say he took some experimental drug, although I don't think the experimental drug has any effect on his health. The White House, a White House official, is unofficially reporting that they did it out of, and I believe he said as well, they did it out of an abundance of caution. Shade, thoughts on that?
Well, well, I don't know. It's hopefully he's okay, I guess. I mean, I hope he doesn't die. Have you heard of this woman? I unfortunately can't remember her name. It's like Sylvia or something like that. But she was I guess like a soothsayer of sorts. She was like I forget the actual word, but I guess a psychic maybe. But she kind of predicted that Donald Trump would become president, and she predicted that he would die in office, and that Mike Pence would take over, and that he would die of an illness. She also supposedly helped predict things like COVID-19, 9/11, all kinds of different, like, extremely big world events. Um,
Sounds
so
like we need to make her the next president.
I think she's dead, but
Mm.
at least I believe so. Quite frankly, I don't actually know that much about her. I just remember hearing about it in passing and kind of reading a couple of things about it maybe a few months back, but I don't know. It's starting to have that like weird feeling to it where it's like it's kind of creepy, where it's like I've definitely heard this. It's not deja vu per se, but I don't know. It's odd. It's odd to see things almost going in that way. And quite frankly, yeah, I just, I hope that she's wrong. I hope that he's okay. Not to say that I'm a proud Trump supporter or anything, but like, I don't want anybody to have to suffer. I mean, you
Have
said
you
this
have you seen the
yesterday.
stuff on social media?
No.
People are going in on
Oh, I'm
him.
sure
People
they
have been
are.
saying he should drink bleach. He should
Yep.
try hydroxychloroquine himself. Like just
Yeah.
a
No,
bunch
I,
of a
I
bunch
actually,
of
I've even
I don't
heard
want
some
to
of
say
the
mean
same
spirited
things.
things, but
I've heard some of the same things from some of my students as well. Or at least my older students, those who are adults. And yeah, I don't know. It's kind of sad that we let our political alignments kind of define who we think is an okay person to survive. I mean, I heard you say this yesterday, and I had to agree with this. I, as a liberal, do not agree with the death penalty. I'm just not comfortable with it. I wouldn't say that I am a liberal, but I certainly don't agree with death, at least provoked death of any form. And I think wishing ill on anybody it's not the same, but it has similar energies. Like, I mean, if you wouldn't want your grandma to die, you shouldn't want anyone else to die either. You know? I don't know. Does that make sense?
no, I agree with you. And I'm gonna take a different approach when I talk about it. I'm gonna say that I don't think I'm as confident as I was last night about the president's health. Um, I think that his political advisors, there's a medical facility in the White House, and there's also one at the Naval Observatory where the vice president stays. They would have done anything to keep him in the White House and not have to. The optics of it is bad. It's terrible for a president. And I would also say this: out of an abundance of caution, Melania has it too, right? Nobody cares about. Are you saying like there's no caution for her? Nobody gives a darn. The president hasn't tweeted all day.
Is he in the hospital right now
He's
as we
at
speak?
Walter Reed Hospital right now as we speak. And so I wish him a speedy recovery. I think, like you said, we don't want you to be president, but we don't want you to be. You don't necessarily like. You don't have to die for that. To like, we'll beat you in November, buddy. Like, and so and yeah, I think it's been lost that as far as the election goes, well, let me ask you this: should Biden suspend his campaign?
So, that brings me back to this woman's predictions. She said that the campaign will be postponed. So, whether or not, I mean, I think that it should happen. I have to be curious. Is this going to be the first time that it does happen? Like maybe it will. I can see why people would want to do that, especially let's say like the worst should happen and
Wait,
Donald
the
Trump does
election or
pass
the
away.
campaign?
I'm sorry, the election.
Okay. Well, you're talking about something different, but okay, keep going.
Okay, but well, okay, so postpone the campaign.
Like,
Um,
should he say out of respect for what's going on right now with the president? I'm not going to have any campaign events
well,
until
so
he's
if he
better.
postpones the campaign, we would have to postpone the election.
No, no, not at all. As I say, campaigns get postponed all the time. In
I guess
2000
it
in
depends on how long.
2008, they I guess only John McCain postponed his, but when there was the crisis on remember when they needed to come back to Washington to vote because they had that package and they were talking about an economic like this is going to be the worst thing since the Great Depression.
I do
Um
remember that. Yeah.
yeah, I was going to say they suspended or what's his face suspended his campaign then. Um
I suppose you're right. I mean, I guess it depends on how long that postponing would actually be.
And then Biden also suspended his campaign during the COVID thing.
Honestly, I would say for Biden, this is a really strong time to campaign. Like
Uh,
Donald Trump said that he has everything covered. He's got things handled and that he has a plan, and that Joe Biden doesn't have a plan. That was what he said in the debate. And now Donald Trump has come down with COVID-19. In that sense, politically speaking, his side looks a little bit weak. It looks like maybe he doesn't have a plan, or maybe that plan that he has isn't as good as he thinks it is, or what would happen if he dies and he can't fulfill his plan. I don't know. There's a lot of questions essentially, and his side doesn't look very strong. So this would be a really good time for Biden, at least in my opinion, to come out and say, you know what, we can't have this continue to happen. Vote for me in November. We're gonna come up with a real solution, and blah 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 blah. I personally think that would be a good political move. I don't know how people would react to it though.
I I'm gonna have to disagree with you respectfully. I think it's a terrible move. I think I think right now they say that 60% of Americans believe the president bought it on himself. But that does mean that there's a four. And even though 60%, to be fair, 60% will win you every single election in a landslide. 60% it bury. But at the same time, the American people are sensitive people. And Donald Trump he has a family. He's a father, a grandfather. And I guess my point is right now, while he's in the hospital and down, you can't like Obama came out and had like he gave some dignified response, but the point is you could campaign if you want, but you can't really talk about Donald Trump right now, like while he's in the hospital. It probably won't go over well with the American. It'll go over well with the small segment of the it'll go over well with the radical. Like there's a lot of people on social media hoping he dies. Like there was someone who I saw a
This is
post
terrible.
I saw a post with over 1,000 retweets talking about I don't know why you all are celebrating when the job isn't done yet. They're talking about, I don't know why you're celebrating with the job half finished, talking about COVID like killing him. And so there is a segment of the American population that's totally, insensitive. But to be fair, there's a segment of the American population on the right that's insensitive. And there's one on the, they're just, they've closed themselves off to. I'll say this much. I know Donald Trump changed the country, but I'll never let him change me and who I am. And so I wouldn't, uh, wish harm on anybody. But with that being said, I think for the most part it would go over terrible. However, I think that the moment Donald Trump steps foot outside the hospital, it's open season. And like you said, he's got like, this is like, and when I was saying, your advisors, like the reason I say this is a big deal, his political people had to say, hey, if you go to the hospital, but here's the worst part. Right now, coronavirus is ripping through the upper echelons of the US government like a wildfire. And I just realized how insensitive that is to our friends in California. My bad about that. But the truth be told, I think they said 8 or 9 people in the executive branch have it, including Kellyanne Conway.
Really?
Yep.
Oh man.
And then 2 senators have it now, confirmed.
What about
Tom Tillis and
how's
Mike
the Supreme
Lee.
Court doing?
I think the Supreme Court would be fine because they're isolated.
Yeah.
But the White House, like the judicial branch doesn't interact with the other branches as much. It gives like the other branches, it'll get like cases and then make rulings. And like sometimes the other branches have a dispute and it'll rule like, hey, like Congress is right, or hey, like the president is right, like, and you'll have like that dispute. But for the most part, they don't interact with, like, the president has Steve Mnuchin talking to Nancy Pelosi. If Mnuchin tests positive, Nancy could test positive. The entire Democratic conference could test positive. You see what I'm saying? Or
Yeah.
like right now, like you have 2 Republican senators with it. How many more Republicans are going to get it? And so it's spreading. Every hour it seems like the number goes up, and it seems like it's just like what we've seen with the sports teams. One day it's 2 cases, then it's 5, then it's 8, then it's 11, then it's the same thing we saw in our states. It was 2, then it was, I remember in Fairfax County there was at one point it was like 11 more people got it. And then like there was a point where I was checking again. It was like, like a few months later, it was like, oh, 97 people have caught it that day. And then like the number just keeps going up. And so right now, if I were Nancy Pelosi, I would shut the hill down. I would say everybody is going to quarantine. Everybody is going home. It's not because of a lack of, leadership. No, this is a disaster. And this was brought on by, to some extent, Donald Trump's negligence. Do not be confused. You can catch COVID doing all the right things. If you're doing all the right things, it makes it much more difficult. But you can still catch COVID doing all the right things. But 60% of Americans got it right. Donald Trump showed incredible disrespect for this disease. Incredible disrespect for the statistics that he is now a part of as far as the confirmed cases go. And hopefully he doesn't find himself a member of, a number in one of those 200,000. But, calling it things like the Kung flu and making fun of Joe Biden for wearing a mask everywhere. It's not good. And, you can be safe when it comes to physical threats. Like we want to be safe when it comes to terrorism and gun violence. And you can want to be, safe when it comes to cybersecurity threats, hackers hacking into emails and stealing secrets, I guess the Chinese government, the Russian government, whoever, WikiLeaks and cables like that and whatnot. But there's something to be said about like in the middle of a pandemic being so negligent and not paying attention to I don't know what kind of security I would call it, but in the middle of a pandemic, you had to think like the same way you check for guns, you should have been checking for temperatures, and you should have been requiring people to wear masks like they was clothes. Like if you're not wearing a mask, like you're getting fined. Like you get 3 fines. Like you're spending time in jail, big dog. Like just like right now, like this is a time like for all of us like science is what it is. So I'm gonna say I wouldn't, if I were Joe Biden, I wouldn't keep campaigning because we all can see what we see.